Hi there. My name is Bridget, and I like worms a little more than the average person does. In fact, I actually have a worm shirt. Worms are very important to the environment because they mix soil layers, provide aeration, and facilitate water and nutrient division for plants. They also help break down organic matter. They're really neat. How would you feel, however, if I told you that worms were actually one of North America's biggest threats? Prior to the last glaciation period, North America had many native worms. We know this through genetic records. Essentially, the glaciers came along, killed the worms, and when the glaciers receded, we were left with a wormless North America. It really stayed that way until the European colonizers came along, bringing their worms. Really, the only common naturalized species we have is the European earthworm, also known as Lumbricus terrestris, and it's what most people think about living in their gardens or crawling around on the sidewalk during a rain shower. Anyways, in the mid to late 1980s, a new species came along. The Asian jumping worm, also known as Amynthas agrestis, was introduced and kept quiet for a little while. It wasn't until recently that people knew the scope and scale of their work as an invasive species. These worms are a lot different because they move and process soil differently. To be brief, they consume organic matter very quickly, produce waste that cannot be utilized, and destroy soil quality. This allows for erosion, for plants to die, and for invasive plants to take over, creating a whole new ecosystem. These worms look a lot different as well. Besides being big, long, and really gross, they have a white clitellum and jump around. Anyways, with the help of Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Winbourne, we were able to create an experiment that observed these worms. Through this experiment, we measured carbon flux between two different worm species, the Asian jumping worm and the European earthworm, and two different leaf litter types, oak and maple. We weighed, observed, and took carbon dioxide measurements by sealing the probe in a jar and taking a measurement every 5 minutes for 30 minutes for every jar. We had 3 controls, soil and maple, soil and oak, and just soil, along with the Asian jumping worm in both maple and oak and the European earthworm in both maple and oak. This experiment is a work in progress. The data is still being analyzed through Excel and R, but at this point in the project, we know the worms have a preference for maple leaves, and that both worms seem to break down materials and cycle it at a similar rate. Overall, these tiny worms have the potential to change the landscape in a big way. From destroying farmland to killing New England's beautiful forests, more research needs to be done because they are definitely a threat to our ecosystem.